Okay.
Hey, we're live. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Jeremy. This is particularly special today. We're going to be talking about love habits. So for those of you who are seeking more intimacy, who are seeking more connection, well, you're in the right place. My name is Alexis Dennehy. I'm a naturopath, a somatic therapist, a public health practitioner, and I have found that in practice, a lot of people that come to me for a myriad of conditions, essentially I practice almost as a GP, except I don't use chemicals. Most of my clients end up eventually talking about their relationship. So it is perfect that we have access to relationship therapist and Gottman therapist and hypnotherapist, Jeremy Gates, today. And he is also a dear friend of mine, so this is particularly precious that we get to share our connection with you guys. So I believe, Jeremy, that you are working on a 21-day program specifically on love habits. So I'm super keen to hear about that. But would you love to tell us, well, I would love to hear about this merging of evidence, particularly from what I've heard you mention about the Gottmans and the work of this book that everyone seems to be talking about at the moment, Tiny Habits, by Stanford psychologist BJ Fogg. Take it away, Jeremy. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. That's a huge introduction, and thank you, Alexis. So the program that I've been working on, 21-day program to help people to build better habits. Essentially, the meeting point is the work that the Gottmans did identified that there are many tiny little bids for connection that people make in their relationship. And when those bids for connection are met and sort of turned toward, then they strengthen the foundation of the relationship. We talk about people making bids for connection and they're turned toward enthusiastically. And what that means is that somebody says something like, hey, shall we grab a cup of coffee? And the recipient will be like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go do that. What a wonderful idea. A less enthusiastic bid will still kind of strengthen the connection if it's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, let's go. Whereas when there is a turning away, where there's no response, it actually kind of weakens connection. And so the way that the program I've been working on, and this is just a kind of an adjunct to the work that I'm doing as a relationship therapist, I saw a real need to get people engaged in these tiny little bits and kind of formalize them when they've fallen out of practice. It dovetails into the work of BJ Fogg, who was the founder of the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford. He wrote an excellent book, Tiny Habits, probably the best book on habits and habits formation that I've ever come across in my life. A little bit kind of chunkier than Atomic Habits, which is a really excellent book as well. But essentially what the goal of the program is to just get people kind of entrained toward more, including more of these bids for connection in a really positive way, so that it can build the baseline trust or love bank account of their relationship. And what that tends to do over time with practice is help relationships, if they do run into strife, to have that kind of that pay it forward, proactive goodwill in the bank. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I love it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the work of Dr. Gottman is that it's based on longitudinal data. For those of you who are into research, you'll be really interested in this work, because anything that's longitudinal has a lot of bearing, and particularly in the area of relationship, which is so qualitative, it can be quite hard to get hard evidence around something like how do we interact? How do we know if the way that we're interacting is actually enhancing our relationship or damaging our relationship? So to have access to this longitudinal research is really quite exceptional. In fact, I think it's probably the only access we have on a global scale. So what I'm hearing is that that your program, that Love Habits, this practice of turning towards, really has some solid backing behind it, so couples can know it's not just I'm trying another kind of pop psychology. I'm not just trying this out and seeing how it goes. Actually, we know we know what works, and so we can apply it with confidence.
Yeah. The work of doctors John and Julie Gottman spans several decades. So John was a researcher, and he was collecting all this data for quite some time before his wife, Dr. Julie Gottman, got involved. She was a clinical psychologist, and they developed interventions that they tested. And so historically, the realm of couples therapy or relationship therapy was very much kind of based upon either theoretical models or the kind of gut instinct or the intuition of the therapist. And one thing that the introduction of these scientific models gave us is a really elegant structure to begin providing interventions into a couple's relationship that have been proven to work. Now, they're not like a guarantee, but they're certainly a much better bet. And so being able to draw from that science rather than just kind of some kind of airy-fairy intuition has really kind of provided me with a solid bedrock of certainty in terms of what I need to do when certain things present themselves. Of prime importance amongst them, of course, are the four horsemen of the apocalypse in terms of relationship. We're scanning for indicators of criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. And so the love habits concept is just to begin addressing contempt. So providing an antidote to contempt through the expression of fondness and admiration, and just kind of getting ahead of the game in that regard. So it was designed to help couples that are both in crisis or just wanting to strengthen the baseline of their well-being in terms of their relationship.
Okay. I'd love to hear more about the way that you facilitate that, Jeremy. But before that, I'm aware that some of our listeners may not be in relationship and may actually be longing for a level of intimacy that they're not experiencing at the moment. So do these love habits, do they apply to, other forms of relationship outside of romantic?
Yeah, of course. The basic premise is to stay engaged, to stay connected. It's like a game of catch or a game of Marco Polo.
Okay.
If you play Marco Polo and you're calling out Marco and no one's calling back Polo, yeah, that's it. It's not much of a game. Marco, oh God, Marco, where are you? So maintaining that kind of that playfulness, that fun, that energy, that connection. So it's a transferable skill, and it applies to any and every human relationship, really. When we make bids for connection, then really we're asking to be acknowledged, validated, shown that we're significant, that we're important. When we get that, it's energizing. And when we don't get it, then that feeling fades away. In fact, they found that if you make two bids for connection that aren't met, then it's a very, very few percentage of people, around 2 or 3%, that will make a third bid. Yes. So unless it's kind of kept alive, then we tend to kind of like, shrink inside, crush, feel like we've been quite rightly rejected.
Okay. So that does apply, right? I mean, even in a work situation, even in this situation, so colleagues working together, there's a constant bid and receive. Is that what I'm hearing? Like if I make a suggestion or I make a request and there's no receiving, then I'm going to start feeling a little bit, I'm going to start feeling self-conscious. I'm going to start feeling lonely. I'm going to start questioning and second guessing. And yet when I do receive a bid, it's like a sigh of relief that I am heard, that I'm seen, that I matter, that my existence makes a difference, and that I have some influence. I'm not sitting in a silo on my own. You are very good at comfortable silences, Jeremy, and you are a relationship therapist. Yeah, beautiful example.
Yeah, exactly. And you see how you begin kind of overcompensating and like pouring in more and more energy.
Yeah.
And this is what we see happening, what I see in relationships, where one person is making these bids for connection, and sometimes they kind of overextend. They begin kind of putting more and more energy, trying to engage. I know we were just kind of having a little bit of fun, a little bit of play. But even in that exchange, had I remained silent and not responded to your bids,
Totally.
then it would have got more and more awkward.
It reminds me of children, you know, when the child's like, Mum, can you come and look what I've done, you know, and the mum's like, in a minute, darling, and Mum, just come and see, in a minute, darling, you know, and that, the heartbreak if you're the observer. And we've all been in both positions, but how simple. I love that you've called it love habits, you know, those small things that we can do. Tell us about turning towards. You've mentioned that a few times. What do you actually mean by turning towards?
Well, turning towards is acknowledging and validating the experience of your other. In terms of a bid, it's just kind of responding, ideally enthusiastically. But in terms of a broader context where there's difference or there's conflict, it means turning toward that, and rather than seeking to get away from it or dismiss it or avoid it, something important is happening for your friend or your partner or your colleague. You turn toward it, you give it attention and focus, and you draw out what is going on for that other person.
Mm-hmm.
So the turning toward is one of so turning toward, not away, is one of the levels of the sound relationship house, which is kind of a metaphor for a healthier relationship that the Gottmans developed. It's also part of the Attune model, ATTUNE, which is the framework that is recommended for developing and deepening trust. So building awareness, turning toward, not away, tolerance of difference, understanding, non-defensive listening, and empathy. And it's that Attune model that kind of provides the backbone for the educational component of that kind of love habits program that we've been putting together.
So turning toward is physically shifting my focus, and also communication-wise, I'm inquiring further. Is that fair to say?
You're bringing your attention and your focus toward the person that is requesting, either consciously or unconsciously. Mm-hmm. So an example of this is a child that doesn't have the language to say, hey, I'm feeling a bit, lonely or isolated. Mm-hmm. They will express their need, and the ideal is that you turn toward that with the recognition that all behavior is a request to have a need met. All behavior is communication. When your partner, and this kind of, I guess, I work in a space where there's a lot of conflict. I'm a relationship therapist. So the application of turning toward in a lot of the work that I do is around conflict and is around difference. And really what you're doing is bringing your attention, your focus to your partner, and kind of bearing the discomfort of conflict so that you can actually get a resolution. So turning toward your partner means really just saying, like, I'm here for you, and this situation sucks, but I'm going to bear that discomfort to say ultimately that you're not alone.
Okay, so I would imagine that would be when it really matters. If there's conflict, if there is some disharmony in the relationship, the turning towards would be most essential and most difficult. That's probably when couples are inclined to turn away out of habit or the need for comfort.
Well, if you consider an example, maybe you're driving along with your partner, and your partner's giving you directions, and they give you directions too late, and whoever's driving is like, "Oh my God, why'd you do that? Wow, that God, blah, blah, blah." And it becomes this big thing. The partner that's been giving directions may receive that as an attack, and the situation can begin kind of snowballing. It's like, look, I told you, blah 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 blah. I don't want to paint too many pictures. I don't want to create any trauma for people back in NAM.
Let's bring it down.
But the person that's giving directions in that scenario could choose to turn towards their partner and say, "Hey, look, what's going on there? That seems like a really big reaction. Are you okay? Are we okay?" And it's quite a different way of responding. It's quite a different way of being, recognizing that the kind of the motivator for that type of behavior may be something completely different, but seeking to understand, hey, what was going on for you right there? Like, that was a really big response. Was there something about how I said that? Did you make it mean something? And the driver might be, "Oh gosh, your mum and dad were always so critical of me," and blah blah blah. Who knows? Who knows what it is?
So but a willingness is what I'm hearing. A willingness to allow for discomfort, allow it to pass also, which we know it does inevitably, but being willing to still turn towards and inquire, what was going on for you? I noticed overreaction.
Well, we wouldn't call it an overreaction.
Oh, okay. What language can you give to us?
You might say something like, that seemed to kind of elicit a really big response in you. Like there seemed to be a lot of emotion present for you. There seemed to be some hurt and anger. You might make some empathetic guesses at what's going on, but the frame around it, the function is that in some ways you're kind of standing guard for the validity of your partner's experience. So, okay, they've had a big response. Rather than seeking to invalidate that, you turn toward it, and you're like, okay, wow, like curiosity, like bringing curiosity to it. It's like, I really care for this person, and something big really happened, and yeah, sure, I'm the target of it, but let's investigate. So becoming more.
Yeah, go on.
Becoming more of a scientist rather than a lawyer.
Yes, that's a beautiful analogy, because what I'm hearing is it really requires skill. If love habits are most powerful in the moments when one party, if not both parties, are in a heightened state, then it really will require a lot of skill and a lot of language to be able to turn towards, when really what we're talking about is unconscious behaviors. So I'm delighted that you're building this program, Jeremy. There's so much need for it. Go on. What is it?
If I could just kind of jump in there.
Yes.
So what you described a need for a lot of skill. the fact is that the reason why we focus on habits is because it's actually the repetition and consistency of rehearsing being in that situation. So either in the moment, rehearsing self-regulating and remaining in a calm state, or rehearsing turning toward, or rehearsing non-defensive listening. Oh, okay. I can hear that you think that I am an idiot. Can you be a little bit more specific about that? What is it specifically that makes me that?
I love it. It's gold. Yes.
So those strategies need to be practiced. They need to become habits so that they're there when you need them. In some ways, it's kind of like a martial art of the heart and mind, where a martial art, you practice hitting a bag 1,000 times, and you may never ever be in a fight. But if you are in a fight, then you sure as hell know to hit them, especially if you're being attacked by a bag. You've got the skill because it's become part of the muscle memory. And the reason why habits are so important is because not only are they the best expenditure of time and energy, but because they can be there at that unconscious level when you need them. So that's it's less about skill. Absolutely, you need to learn what you don't know. You need to increase your ability, but it's actually in the practice. So sorry,
I am fully with you. I am a huge fan of drills and a huge fan of repetition and a huge fan of rehearsal. I wonder if, before we take a look at the comments, because there's some beautiful comments coming through, whether you might have just 2 or 3 statements that someone might use if their partner is in a heightened state and they are also inclined, they're noticing a tendency to pull away. And that may come in so many forms, right? It might come in the form of, oh my God, I can't wait to get home. Oh my God, I can't wait to get out of the car. Oh my God, I can't wait for a stiff drink. It might come in many different forms, right? If someone is noticing that tendency to want to turn away, what would you recommend that they practice getting their mouths around? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about words that we can find to facilitate our own experience of self-regulation and turning towards. What have you got?
Just to clarify what you're asking. Are you asking for what the person that feels that they're being turned away from can say, or what?
No. What our listeners can apply if they would like to start applying the love habit of turning towards someone they care about.
I think that the thing that I think is a good thing to say is just, I'm here for you when you need.
I'm here for you whenever you need.
That's it. So if they sense that the other is turning away, just like, look, I can see that you've got some stuff going on, and I'm here when you need. I'll still be here
whenever you need. So there's an element of patience, there's an element of availability, consistency, all of that secure attachment stuff that I'm, in a way, even providing it to myself. I'm saying, we don't have to necessarily deal with this now, but I'm here for you. Yes, that's a beautiful statement. Whenever you need. That is powerful. Yeah.
It just can help. Oftentimes when people are turning away, they're in a fight or flight state. They've allowed fear to kind of to come to life in their mind. And a statement like that, even when you're in a very heightened space, is clearly not an attack.
Yes. Very clearly. Obviously, we're on the same team.
That's it.
I'm not in opposition. Yeah, I'm here. And even that, in fact, yes, somebody said that to me recently. Yeah, when I was acting defensively, I'm on your team. that was a nice one. I'm on your team, you know, and it wasn't, again, there was no pressure to necessarily unpack in that moment. Just, yeah, same thing. That's a really powerful one. Thank you for that statement, Jeremy. I'm here for you whenever you need.
Yeah, I think that the frame that I look at relationships through is informed by the work of Sue Johnson, who wrote Emotion Focused Couples Therapy. Hold Me Tight. Wonderful book that I completely forgot the name of, but she kind of alludes to this idea that we are the guardian of the validity of our partner's experience. And so sometimes it's okay to become unraveled. Sometimes you need to feel safe to just kind of let all of these fantasies come to mind and be expressed. But knowing that your partner can kind of hold that space for you, and they have the best you still in their mind. So holding guard or standing guardian for the best in your partner, or for the validity of their experience, it's a very kind frame and effective.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. I look forward to checking out your program. There is obviously a huge amount of content flowing through you, a huge amount of passion, validity. I can't wait to hear more about that, the validity of our experience, because that is, again, really a powerful experience. Let's have a look at some of the comments, because I can see that Sarah Scown's in the house, and Stephanie McCarney and Gravilia Robusta. Beautiful to have you guys here. Sarah's saying that it's helpful for relationships in general. Oh, there we go. Or primarily for romantic relationships. And I hope you heard the response to that, Sarah. But Jeremy's agreed that it applies across the board. And, you know, we've touched a little bit on, you know, collegiate relationships. Of course, it would happen, you know, if I'm working with somebody and I'm seeking a response to my idea. Of course, it happens even with our pets. This is one that I think is a little bit forgotten. My cat, you know, she makes plenty of bids, and our relationship is much tighter when I respond to the first bid.
I think currently the science doesn't include cats.
Okay. Maybe we could
reach out to the Gottman Institute and find out if there's a veterinary program that they're looking at.
That's right. And if not, we'll save that for another lifetime. Stephanie says, what if you are the one that's had their bids getting knocked back? Okay, so that's where you were heading to earlier, Jeremy. So Stephanie says, so feels like giving up on trying, and she's talking specifically about friendships.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is an important frame around this where you do need to take care of yourself, to have firm but gentle boundaries. Essentially, if you're in a relationship where you're continually making bids for connection and they're not being met, then, you know, you need to consider whether that is something that fills your cup, whether you're prepared to be there. Friendships are a really important frame, and really all relationships are friendships to some extent.
Yeah.
In a friendship, if you find yourself overextending, then my advice would be to bring your attention and your focus back to self-soothing, to kind of taking care of yourself, ensuring that your own cup is full. If you have a friendship, it's okay to have friends that don't kind of meet you all of the time. But if you're in that dynamic where you're putting a lot of energy in and not getting anything back, that's not a thriving relationship. Thriving relationships are where those bids are met, and you create more energy than it costs. It's okay to have friends that are kind of, you know, fun but essentially parasitic, as long as you're only spending the energy that is over and above, like your cup is already full and it's just the excess. In those kind of circumstances, fine. Otherwise, taking pause to perhaps bring your energy back to yourself and use that in a constructive way. Really just to say that, you are enough, that you don't need to be validated by anybody outside of yourself. And maybe some self-soothing, self-love practices. And you don't necessarily need to give up on those friendships, but it's a good idea to clarify what's actually happening, and just to make it really specific and explicit. I feel that my attempts to connect with you aren't being reciprocated, and it would mean a lot to me if you would meet my need for connection by responding to my bids, or perhaps something, it would mean a lot to me if you return my calls, or at least communicate to me that I am important to you through your behavior.
Just to clarify on the parasitic but fun relationships, are you talking about, I guess, and I think this is true for all relationships, that there's a construct, or I guess a container around a relationship. Is that kind of what you're talking about? That some relationships meet certain needs, and that may be the extent of it, but not to, but that can be acceptable under a certain space, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess without knowing the specifics of the circumstance, and it was kind of like I was being a little bit tongue-in-cheek in terms of the reference to a parasitic relationship. Like any relationship that works for you, that is consensual and isn't hurting anybody, is fine, really. But in terms of thriving relationships, they're relationships where there's energy coming into it from both parties.
I like
mutual needs are getting met. And ultimately it forms this kind of, we say gestalt, something that's more than the sum of its parts. Healthy relationships are energizing. They give more energy than they cost. And that's really the marker. We have like a kind of a general rule of thumb where, for the most part, when you're getting your needs met, you feel good. And that's because the energy yield is higher. When you're not getting your needs met, you don't feel so good, and there's an energy drain. So if you're putting in all of your energy and your time and yada yada, and you're not getting anything back, then that's a draining relationship. It's not. You can have one of those or two of those in your life, but they can't be your primary relationship. You need to be able to fill your cup from other relationships or within yourself.
As a framework, I think that's incredibly valuable. Having seen couples move through closure of a relationship, that has essentially been the deciding factor. Does 1 + 1 equal 3? If so, great. Are you more together than you are apart? And if 1 + 1 does not, if it equals less than 2, then that's a bit of a no-brainer. Well, it is a no-brainer, really. I mean, it's not to say that it won't happen for periods of time, but as a framework, I really like what you've said there about that there's energy because you are more together. There's a synergy.
Yeah, but I've heard it referred to as the experience of you as well is kind of you plus plus. Just meaning that you get to experience a version of yourself that you enjoy being, and so that in turn is energizing. And not everyone likes being either a martyr or taken for granted. Maybe for a little while it's fun, try something new. Hey, let's try being taken for granted this week. Okay, sweetheart.
Okay, so we need to start wrapping up, but thank you for that thought-provoking statement there, Stephanie. And Bravilia says, consciousness and presence of mind seems to be required, and dampening or softening of one's own automatic reactions seems to be asked of the seeker of building relationship. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
I would love to be able to read that again, Or would you mind reading that out again?
Yeah, absolutely. She says, I've just refreshed my page. Consciousness and presence of mind seem to be required. So if I'm going to turn towards, it's going to require consciousness and presence of mind. So that's what you were speaking
Absolutely.
earlier with self-regulation.
So, awareness of self and other, and also awareness of context.
Yes. Yeah. She says dampening or softening our own automatic reactions. So our default mode seems to be us or the seeker. The person who's building the relationship needs to be conscious, present, and able to soften. I like that word, soften.
Absolutely. In the Gottman framework, they refer to that as self-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that, again, takes practice, either through mindfulness or meditation or breathing techniques. Oftentimes we use the breath being the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, but also because it's always there when you need it. So when you anchor productive, healthy responses rather than unconscious reactivity, literally meaning to act again as you have before, when you bring that responsiveness in, like you take a deep breath in, if you've done some breath work where you've anchored in a safe space or a place where you are mindful of your value, that you're enough, that life is constant change, or perhaps a place where you do commit to always seeing the best in the person that you're with, you can take a deep breath in those moments, and that can help just to communicate to your unconscious mind that you're not actually in any physical danger. You're not in any threat of being killed, which our unconscious mind will automatically go into. We're still biological creatures. We don't fight tigers anymore. Now we fight, people in traffic. But the physiology, the response is very similar. So being able to kind of pattern interrupt, kind of take a deep breath in, with practice, with repetition, you can build a state within you that you get that trigger and then just kind of bring yourself back to center.
Yeah. So thank you, Gravilia. That was a beautiful statement there. And it's time for us to come to a close, but how can our listeners engage with this 21-day program? How can they seek more resources around building habits within their most intimate, most important relationships? And how can they meet their own needs for connection and intimacy? What do you have for us, Jeremy?
Okay, so there are three very big questions. The easy ones first. So in terms of getting an understanding of habits, two really good books: Atomic Habits, very accessible, and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, absolute masterpiece. The reading up or listening to some of the John or Julie Gottman lectures online, YouTube, in terms of bids and bids for connection, a really, really good frame. The second one was about the program, was it? How to get, we will be doing a kind of like a soft launch in a couple of weeks. If you're interested, just sort of send a DM, perhaps in this thread, or Alexis to you or I, and we'll put you on the launch list. And in terms of deepening relationship and intimacy with the self and other, I would begin with bringing awareness to the self. So all good things ultimately begin with awareness, and there's a very simple practice of bringing your attention or your focus to the sensations of the inhalation, and just remaining in the present with the knowledge that what you're experiencing of yourself is perfect. So it's the perfect experience of whatever you're experiencing. Beginning to allow that kind of acceptance of your own innocence, your fundamental innocence, and beginning to enjoy what it is that took billions of years of evolution to come into being. We have this extraordinary experience in these bodies, in this time and place, that's taken like so many millions and millions of coincidences, and really kind of embracing and understanding that you're an experience of nature in motion, or the universe. Bring the level of identity up so that you can sit in the moment and really just experience the perfection of you as you are right now.
A beautiful closing statement, Jeremy. Much as we could all listen to you for hours, I would love to finish on that transcendent note. You have a way of lifting us out of the mundane. So thank you so much for what you've brought today. I still didn't get to pick your brains about what the marathon actually looks like, but listeners can book in with Jeremy via North Brisbane Psychologists. Is that true, Jeremy? Yeah, great.
That's right.
And to make it simpler, those of you who are interested in Jeremy's Love Habits, the 21-day program for building more intimacy and connection, you could just put a simple yes in the comments below, and we'll keep track of that, so that as soon as we have it launched, we can send something straight to your inbox. And it sounds like it's a much needed program, Jeremy. So I can't wait for it to be released.
Just to quickly clarify, it is a pure 100% online. It's a digital program. So it's not 21 days in the room with me. Believe me, that will.
That is not something any of us want.
That's exactly. They're not the habits that people really want.
And we've already got some yeses coming in, so that's wonderful news.
Fantastic. Okay, great.
Okay, everybody, we look forward to seeing you next Sunday live at 5, and hopefully we'll be getting Jeremy back as soon as possible. Wonderful to have you here on the show, Jeremy. Really a pleasure, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Lovely to be here.
Okay,
see you later, everybody.
Ciao.